Hey, how you doing? This is Jeff of WebNola, New Orleans web marketing company specializing in web design, and today we're going to talk a little bit about different ways you can get your website built. Came up with 13, that's all I can think of, and I think that's everything. Could be wrong, but I think that's everything. So we're also going to be discussing the pros and cons of each way, so let's get into it. First things first. You can have a freelancer with little to no experience build your website for you. The pros are, it's probably going to be pretty affordable. They're kind of learning on your dime, so it's going to be affordable. They're not going to charge you very much, most likely. Cons, it's probably not going to be high quality. Again, they're learning on your dime. Not going to be high quality. Another con is with a freelancer. If something happens to them, they take a new job, get hurt, killed, God forbid, anything like that. They're just, it's all one person. So, unfortunately, your stuff might be just gone. And that happens a lot with freelancers. Number 2, experienced part-time freelancer. Pros are that again, it's going to be pretty affordable. Not as affordable, most likely, as the inexperienced guy. It's going to cost a little bit more than that, but in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be pretty affordable. The cons are that they're part-time. That means they probably have a full-time 40-hour-a-week job, and they're doing this on nights and weekends. Well, what happens when you need some help between 9 and 5 and it's an emergency? That guy may not be able to help you because they're going to be busy with their own job. They're just doing this on the side as a hobby or to make some extra bucks. So the pros are going to be pretty affordable. Cons are not going to be available. They'll do decent work at a decent price, but you got to deal with the availability issues. Number 3, an experienced full-time freelancer. Experienced means is a pro because they're going to do some decent work for you, most likely, and they're full-time, so they're going to be available more than the other freelancers. However, a con that I have to mention is that they're not going to have the best experience with the big accounts and stuff like that. They're going to be most likely dealing with small accounts. Very small businesses. They're not going to have things like the best grasp on current design tactics and things like that. And another con is, once again, they're a freelancer, single person. Something happens to them, move away, get hurt, something like that. Might just be SOL. Number 4, outsource from a foreign country. Pros, it's going to be pretty affordable. Usually, not always. Sometimes you'd be a little bit surprised how much they're charging, but for the most part, they're pretty affordable. Now, the cons are pretty important here. What you're going to run into a lot is communication issues. English, a lot of times, is not their first language. You may feel like you agree on a project scope to build something, and then they deliver something that's not even close to what you expected. Communication barrier is pretty big here, and a lot of times what you'll see is a less quality than you expect. Even at the low price, sometimes the quality just isn't there. So communication barrier is the most important thing. You get what you pay for, but sometimes you don't even get that with this because the communication barrier, you might be on totally different levels. Number 5, you can do it yourself. Build your own website via traditional means. So what this means is you can go grab some books, go watch or read some tutorials, learn the basics of web design and build your own website, along with Photoshop or some kind of design program, or whether it be a content management system, using a template or something like that. But learn the basics. Pros here, it's free. if you value your time at $0 per hour. Depending on how busy you are, if you're very busy and your hourly rate is $100, well then, I guess you could multiply your the number of hours it'll take to do it yourself by 100, and I guess that's how much it costs, if you want to think about it that way. The cons are that it's a nice chunk of time to learn this stuff, and what we typically see is the first time people build a website, it just doesn't usually look very good. There's exceptions to every rule, but it's usually the case. So it's a big time investment. I guess one other pro here is you get to learn a new skill. I would recommend doing it if you have the time, or even if you want to learn it on weekends or something like that. That'd be pretty cool. And if you run into trouble, you could always call a company like ours, and we'll help you out. Number 6, you can do it yourself via a website builder solution. Website builder solutions are things like Wix, like Squarespace, things like Yahoo. Actually, Yahoo used to have something called Page Builder. I don't think they have it anymore. Google's got a site builder. There's a lot of website builder solutions out there. Pros are that they're usually pretty affordable, at least at first glance. What they do is they charge like a monthly fee and includes everything, including the hosting of the site. So at first glance, it seems like $29, $30, $40 a month to have a website. That's a lot cheaper than having someone build it for a couple hundred or a couple thousand. But it leads me to a con. Well, and also you get to do it yourself. That's another pro. You get to kind of do it yourself, have control. The cons are these solutions are kind of limited to what they can do. There's a learning curve to using them. A lot of the time, rarely does somebody just sit down and make a website in 5 minutes. You're probably going to drop at least a couple hours into these things, just building your website with a website builder solution. Another con is, let's talk about the cost. That cost doesn't stop. The development of that site is built into that cost. So while it may seem pretty affordable to pay $50 a month at first, after a few years, you realize, wow, I'm paying $600 a month for this website that's already built, and all they're doing is hosting it. In the long term, you end up paying a lot more this way, a lot of times. And another con is that when you do decide to leave, you've been there for a while, and you realize that you are dropping a lot more money than you seem like you're getting out of it. When you do decide to leave, you might just run into trouble. Things that we've seen are situations where they can't take their website to another host, which is probably pretty common. Another thing is a situation where you can't take your domain away, and it's going to be a situation. It might make sure you read the fine print. That's all I'm saying, because sometimes you can't get your domain, sometimes you can't get the website you thought you owned, and they make it kind of hard for you to leave. And it kind of makes sense. It doesn't make it right, but it kind of makes monetary sense. So that's what you might be getting into with that. Number 7, you can have a friend or family member build the website for you. You got a buddy, you got a brother, sister, something like that, son, daughter, who has a little bit of skills, or they want to learn to help you. The pros are you're not going to pay probably a whole lot. If you do, you're probably going to get some kind of discount. The cons are that you can find yourself in a situation where you're not really happy with the way the site looks, but because they're a friend or family, you don't really want to hurt their feelings and tell them you don't like it. So you're sitting there and you're like, wow, I'm now in this awkward position where I want to get a new website, but I don't know how to tell them. And they're in control of my domain. I have to tell. It's like an awkward situation that people put off because they don't want to hurt their friend or family member's feelings. Don't put yourself in. I don't recommend putting yourself in that situation, because there's quite a few clients that we talk to who are in that situation, and some of them decided not to get a new website just to avoid that awkward situation. So, something you should know. Number 8, Company who specializes in something else. Typically what you see this is when you're buying advertising on a site or you're buying some kind of service, they'll throw in something like, hey, we also offer a web design package. They don't specialize in it. They just offer it. What they did is they found the cheapest possible way they could give you a website. Usually it's going to be template based. It's going to be very limited. There's going to be thousands of other sites on the internet that look pretty close to it. So these are the cons. They may charge a couple $100 for it. That's a pro. Might be a little bit more affordable than some other solutions. So they're going to give you the cheapest possible web design, or just whatever they can give you affordably that looks decent. So you're not getting a great website. You're not getting a horrible one. You're getting a decent website at a decent price. But they're not going to be able to make the best recommendations for you. Everything they offer you is going to be pretty generic and not really customized to what you want. So it's up to you to decide if you want better than that or not. Number 9, you can go to your existing employee or your entire IT department and ask them what they can offer you. So your existing employee might be able to put together a website, but you might think that, but you never know. So the pros are, there's really no extra cost. The cons are that you'll be pulling these people off of their existing work to work on this, and then those things will get backed up. You might run into a situation where their workload gets low, and then you can put them on the website instead of taking them off the clock or whatever. So letting them do that in their downtime, but you never know when the downtime is going to come. So another con is that typically what I've seen is the IT departments, they're good at making something that's functional, but usually the sites don't look that great. There's an exception to that rule most likely, but typically what I've seen is things that work decent, but they don't look great. So you might want to, if you go this route, you might want to hire a graphic designer to integrate with them, or maybe have them work with a company like Webnola who can design something nice for them to implement. And that's that. Number 10, a new hired employee or a team. So this is another option. You can go ahead and hire someone new, get a whole team of people. As you know, if you're a business owner, well, I'll wait till the cons to get to that. So a pro would be you have someone dedicated or a group of people who are dedicated to the website project. The con is that, as you know, as a business owner or manager, your biggest expenses are salaries. And full-time, part-time employees are your biggest expense, most likely. So that's a lot of expense to take on. And when you look at, if you get some quotes from some development firms or some freelancers, you might find that you're paying crazy amount more than you would with a company who specializes in this and can are so good at it that they can reduce their costs, as opposed to paying someone for a number of years to get this built for you. You'd probably save money, I would imagine, by getting a quote from a company who specializes in it. Number 11, intern or apprentice. An intern is someone who might come work for you for free. It might come work for you for minimum wage or whatever, just to get some experience in the field. So the pro is that I don't really know much about apprentice, but I linked them in with interns because I'd imagine it's pretty close, if not the same thing. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. But pros are that you're not going to be paying much, if anything, for this. The cons are that they don't have any experience. That's why they're there, to learn. So kind of like a freelancer with little to no experience. The cons are that you're probably not going to get a whole lot of quality from this. And if you do, it's probably going to take a long time, a couple different rebuilds, maybe. So that's an option, but it's up to you. Number 12, a company with high overhead who specializes in web design and development. These are those big fancy companies you might see in your downtown area of your city with the really nice, snazzy offices and very high rent. Um, tons of employees everywhere. The pros are you know, you get an established company who has a nice presence in the downtown part of your city. You're gonna have to, if you go meet with them, you're most likely gonna have to pay for parking and deal with. And you're going to, they may have some egos you might be dealing with. You never know what you're gonna be dealing with, and you'll probably get a good website. The cons are, because of all this high overhead, you're going to be paying a lot more because there's a lot of bills that they have to pay, and they have to account for that in their prices. So their prices are going to be very high. There's a ton of things they have to pay for. They have to pay for that rent. They have to pay for that lease, and everything else that goes along with that, all the office space and everything else. So that's that. Number 13, a company with low overhead who specializes in web design and development, like Webnola. The pros here are that you get to save money as opposed to the companies with high overhead, because Webnola is a very lean company. And companies like mine, I work from my home. The people who work with me and for me work from their home, and it is it's a very lean startup with very low overhead and a virtual company, if you will. And we pass those savings on to our customers. So the cons are that you don't get to go to a snazzy office, and instead, companies like mine will meet you at a coffee shop or something like that, which usually gets the job done in our experience. So our choice, obviously, since we are a company with low overhead who specializes in web design and development, is Webnola. And those are kind of all your options. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe and like this video. Follow us on Twitter at Webnola. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Google Plus as well. And that's it. Have a great day.